they've got a little piece of land and there's a failed crop that's full of weeds. Half the plants are missing. Everything's cockeyed and it's a failure. And they're hungry because they're lacking nutrition and food. They're not very well. They're not very strong. They realize they are at the bottom row of the social scale in the world. And they've got no hope. They're in captivity to this poverty. They can't get out of it. So there they are, hopeless, without self-worth, and not well. And I've learned to love people where they are. And you meet people where they are. What you have to do is to listen to them first, if you want them to listen to you. I would say to them, I don't have much money at all, but I tell you what, I was poor like you once and broken. God brought me out of poverty, and it's quite amazing. Would you like to hear my story? But I was a very selfish, ambitious young man, and wanting to play national cricket and live this sort of ambitious life, trying to be a chairman of this and that. And Kath and I both gave our lives to the Lord in November 78. And I was still growing tobacco, but now the Lord was going to work on me. So pointing to the root cause of every problem on earth, it's selfishness. Wars, crimes, violence, theft, corruption, immorality, self-gratification, pride, self-elevation, jealousy, envy, murder, everything has got a root of selfishness. No, he says, no. Surrender to me, everything. Do it my way. Be like a child. Trust me. As a new Christian, I couldn't sleep in the middle of the night. And about 1 o'clock in the morning, I took out my Bible to read, and the reading for the day was from 1 Corinthians 10:31, which says, whatsoever you do, do all to the glory of God. And suddenly the Holy Spirit came and convicted me, and I knew I was growing poison for a lot of people. And I was so convicted, I thought, how can I be glorifying God by growing poison for so many people? And by God's grace, he convicted me, and I made a promise in the middle of the night never to grow another leaf of tobacco in my life. And so sort of a peace came over me, and I fell asleep. And then the next morning I thought, now I've got to tell Kath. And at that stage we had 4 young children, and we of the 5. And then I thought she was going to be very security conscious with all the children conscious and say, no, we can't do that. But immediately I said to her in the morning, I promised the Lord I'd never grow another leaf of tobacco in my life. She said, yes, let's grow food. So we thought by not growing poison, growing food, God would bless us because we're new Christians, you see. But we didn't realize the blessing of God was going to be different, because he had to sort me out from my selfish ambition and my worldliness and pride. And instead of this blessing, there were 2 very dry years in our area. The little rain that came rained all around us, and it just didn't come on our farm, and we couldn't understand this. But for 2 years in a row, we had these 2 terrible droughts, and we lost so much money. The bank came to us and said, look, you're losing so much money. If you carry on growing foodstuffs on the sandveld, we're going to have to close you down. But if you grow tobacco, you're a good tobacco grower, we'll support you. And then they called me to the board to see the board of the bank, and I had to stand there before all these very venerated gentlemen and this gruff chairman at the far end saying, what's this nonsense? You're not growing tobacco. Grow tobacco and we can support you. So I said, no, and I had to look at them and said, no, I've promised God I'd never grow another leaf of tobacco in my life. So there's a massive challenge. Was I going to follow what was convenient or lose everything for God? And we lost everything. But I didn't know that God was going to take us the rest of our lives to teach God's plan for the poor, those with nothing. And we went through the pain of failure, the pain of a lack of self-worth, lack of hope in the way for a while. And so we have a sensitivity to that, those people. We can identify with them. And we've got a story that touches people who are in that state of brokenness. So eventually I got a job working for a widow. We'd been taught ploughing was the hallmark of a good farmer. The more evenly you plowed and the more deeper you plowed, and your tillsons, the way you plowed was an art form, and it was a sign of being a good farmer. But God had to show me that that's the very worst thing you can do, and it's the cause of all the soil loss and the degradation. We'd seen huge erosion on our farm that year, and loss of soil and very hard soil, and the structure had broken down. I'd heard about zero tillage, but when I went and asked all the experts about it, they said, no, the Americans brought it here 10 years ago in the early 70s. Now this is the early 80s. We tried it and it doesn't work in the tropics, so don't forget about it. And I was reading Romans chapter 1, verses 18 and 22, right in the middle of that portion. If you look at God's natural creation, you're without excuse. There must be a God. That means you see his ways as well. And we had some natural creation, some virgin bush on the farm. So I went and had a look, and I sat down in the ground, and I capitulated before God. I just said, Lord, this is your soil, these are your plants. Will you show me how you grow natural creation? And I sat there just looking, waiting on God. And then I noticed that the leaves fall down on the ground and the grass dies down, and there's a beautiful protective blanket over the earth. I saw it, when I touched it, it was nice and soft and it didn't get too hard. And I carried on looking, and I saw there's no soil inversion in natural creation. And I saw that the plants don't die of lack of nutrition or disease and pests. God has sustained it thousands of years. So I thought, this is the way you farm in natural creation, Lord. And Jesus says, I only do what my Father does. I only say what my Father says. So my Father farms like that. Surely I can. And a tiny bit of faith came in my heart to try. We had a 1,000-hectare program of maize, wheat and soyas, and it was failing, and we had last chance at the bank. And of course we were plowing deeply, but I took 2 hectares and I prayed for wisdom, and we planted maize into wheat straw without any plowing. I prayed for wisdom how to do that. All my friends laughed at me and said, oh, you're wasting your time. And then the academic community said I was wasting my time, but I was determined to do this small piece of 2 hectares out of 1,000 hectares. But I tried to do it as best I could so it wouldn't fail with a high standard. And that year we ended up getting 20 tons from 2 hectares, which is 10 tons a hectare. Our national average is half a ton a hectare. That gave me encouragement to do 50 hectares the next year, 100 hectares the next year, then 200 hectares, then 500 hectares. And then within 6 years, the whole farm was down to 1,000 hectares. And we made a profit ever since. And then that continuing profitability grew to the fact that we bought the farms who were failing around us. And eventually, after 12 years, it became 3,500 hectares of net cropping area. 1,250 hectares of irrigation, a massive farm. And in front of me was 17 kilometers of green of this lush, amazing farm. And then across the river was brown, no trees, poverty, hunger. And I was looking out there, and God said, you see, the harvest is white for harvest. I want you to send out many workers into that harvest field.